I'm sitting on my own and I get a notification on Twitter. What's going on? Apparently, a YouTuber is having a conversation with someone who I think is an audience member of the VG5 School channel, and they're talking about the $800 value of a PC versus a PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, this stuff I really like to do. I enjoy jumping into the PC component shopping, looking at prices and doing PC part picker stuff these days. Before I even, kind of enjoyed PC part picker, I'd already been doing this for a while, watching YouTube videos and such. So what did I get tagged in? And this was like a few days ago, guys. So I've been wanting to make this video, but I wanted to take some time. Detective Seeds said, I would go buy a PS5 Pro if you have not already. This user of our, user who's an audience member on the channel said, no, I'm fine. I'm over here with my PC. It's a better value, will last way longer, and I can upgrade whenever I want to, not when someone wants me to. Detective Seeds replied and said, an $800 PC cannot get you to PS5 Pro performance. Then he said Linus tried and was not able to pull it off. He was well over $1,000 to try and get close. Now, I watched that Linus Tech video that time he released it, and I said he's basically ruined the entire argument, because one thing that he did was he went ahead and invested more money in memory, in storage, than was necessary, because he was looking at a performance thing, and instead of harnessing on performance and saying perhaps the other pieces in terms of functionality like the 2 terabyte drive you won't be able to go ahead and leverage, he put that money into 2 terabyte and then shorted the build of possible performance increases. Now, here's the crazy thing. I didn't really bother because I'd already made a build previously to the PS5 Pro's release that could beat the PS5. I made the build for about $650. I have a document actually where the history of this build has been evolving and has been showing the different components and putting them together on a Google Doc. As of today, I have upgraded that PC from the $650 build, which previously used a Ryzen 5 5500 CPU and a RX 6750 XT, to now using a 5800 X3D CPU and using all of the different components. And that build is infinitely better than a PlayStation 5 Pro. And the cost so far, with the major components and the options that you can get in terms of the case and all of the above, puts you around $857. Now, what's crazy here is this particular build that, I finally put at this point is very interesting. Now, give or take, I say $850 because there's one component that is here that also has some variability. So the build, let me show you exactly what I mean when I say variability. The build is going to show you something very interesting at the end of the day. I have a water cooler on this CPU. You can use an air cooler of any kind, and the air cooler will probably cost you somewhere around an extra $30. However, or anywhere from $30 to, all the way to $140 if you want it, actually, because the variation is actually here. And that cooling solution at the end of the day is all up to you. So I'm going to put an arbitrary number here in terms of the cooling solution that you probably, wanting to use. And that number will probably be maybe like another $50 or $60. And so that puts us at maybe like $917. Don't worry, you'll get your money back. You'll see exactly what I mean at the end of the day. I just threw a big cooling solution in there. If we wanted to look at maybe PC components, for instance, let's go to PC part picker. Let's look at products and let's see if we can find CPU coolers. You're going to see exactly what I mean. There's variation all the way from $34. In fact, Cooler Masters Hyper 212, I'm going to take this one and put it at $30. Actually, I'm not going to do 90 here. I'm going to do 60. I took this number. Let me Control Z. Okay, so let's do 60 here. So we're at 887 at the end of the day. That's basically the difference, because when I use this CPU here, the one that cost me $89, I hope you guys pay attention. It came with its own cooler. But when I got this CPU required that you go get your own cooling solution at the end of the day. Now to the build. What can this build do? Well, anything you wanted to do on the budget that you're basically buying it for. The RAM and the memory is around 16 gigs of RAM. The CPU is a 5800X3D. I bought this 5800X3D at GameStop. I walked in and I looked and they had like a little glass case with some computer components, and I was like, what is that thing there? And I've been wanting one of this, so I went ahead and got it. I thought it would be good to do an upgrade after that build had been done. It's a killer CPU. It's the best gaming CPU in the AM4 platform. It's old school because AM5 just nukes it out of orbit, but it's okay. AM5 is eventually going to scale down in price, which would even make it better at the end of the console generation to then buy you something that the next console will never be able to keep up with. Because the next console, if they give you even this performance in the next console, they're going to charge you like $1,200-$1,300. I hope you know that. And then you have your GPU, the 6750 XT. Inside of the PlayStation 5, the GPU is comparable to a 6700 non-XT. Or you can say 6700 XT. If you look at, say, maybe the PS5 Pro, some say it's a 6800. Some say it's the 6700 XT level of clock speeds and so on and so forth. But that's probably not necessarily the most comprehensive thing yet. So a game that I think will probably showcase what this particular thing can do. I was going to use Horizon Forbidden West. Let's go ahead and do Horizon Forbidden West, and let's then keep reading that thread that was shown where they were having a conversation and where I got tagged while the game boots up. So the user said, where's the person who tagged me? Somebody tagged me here. That's why I actually got drawn into the conversation. They said VG has been able to beat the PlayStation 5 for around, $650. And that's where I got dragged into the conversation. And I was like, why do I have a notification? All right, here it is. So our Clever Zone said, nah, I don't trust Linus with some videos. An $800 PC can definitely get you good performance. Sure, you won't get a 4090 or 7900 XTX. We shouldn't even be mentioning these things close to a PlayStation 5 or a Series X or a PlayStation 5 Pro. These things are rendering machines. I mean, you can literally create, if you use, virtualization, you can create multiple gaming PCs out of a build with a 4090. You can allocate your VRAM across the board. The thing's got, 24 gigs of VRAM. If, say, you wanted to create a session for 3 people, you could do it. You could virtualize 3 computers with the 4090 on there. So that's why I say we shouldn't be mentioning that in the same conversation, if you get what I mean. But you'll get something solid. And then it said, plus VG5 School was able to build a PC for that price of the Pro. So Detective C said, happy to be wrong. I'm not a PC specs guy, but I saw the video and he was not able to do it. Is there another video out there also? Is it just the rig or does it include monitor etc with it? Now, the whole talk about the monitor and everything, y'all do know that you can connect your PC to a TV, right? Because this PC that I'm actually showing you guys is my living room build. It comes in an old school case that I've used for years, the DIY Keyboard R that I bought for somewhere around $50, $60. And till this day, I am still rocking that particular build. Let me show you guys. And I have it literally sitting in a small corner in my living room. Hold on. And it's pinned on my Twitter page. This is literally the case. It's got my Elgato, tag, and then the kids put some, stickers for me on there. And I've modified it over time. If you notice, you look very closely, the cooler, those of you who are PC people, the cooler is that AMD's Wraith cooler, the one that came with the 3900X and the 3950. I don't know if it came with the 3950X, but it came with the 3900X, and that's the cooler I was using at the time. But I'm now using a water-cooled solution because for some reason I don't like the Wraith cooler because there's something it does. It's weird. Anyways, Hyper 212, which is the one that I recommended, is a solid cooler. I use that one actually for my 3900 build. So you can take it to the bank. I have, a 5-star review if you want it. And I'm giving you a 5-star review for that one. And he said there are videos out there, and he told them all that. And he says, basically, if you look at the chips, you see what the comparisons are and so on and so forth. But to the crux of the matter, for $850, $900, whatever it is, I mean, we're not at 1K by any means. There's no way I will tell you to go do 1K and then say, oh, well, you see the PS5 Pro, because PS5 Pro is not $1,000. Plus, the build that I have together is going to smoke the PS5 Pro simply because of the sheer magnitude of its capabilities CPU-wise. The PS5 Pro will never touch it. I mean, this is something that I'm sure should be known by now, because if you look at Digital Foundry's video where they actually show you the Series X kit, they also show you the PlayStation 5 kit, which was very interesting because the kits are basically these components that are the basis of the PlayStation 5 and the Series X console. They use the Series X kits basically to pretty much sell these computers. They basically made computers out of them. And then once they made the computers out of them, they then sold them in the common market, but only sold them in China. And this was pretty much the basis for where they were able to go ahead and get us a view of what is inside and the comparable hardware in the PlayStation 5 and the Series X as shown right here. Okay, so we know what hardware is in here, and 4800S is the PS5, and 4700S is the PS5, and 4800S is the Series X. Let me show you right here. Now, AMD's nomenclature already tells you that as you start going up, 4700, 4800, now it's unified memory, but the next best thing will probably be in the 5000 series. And this is where you kind of start going and saying, okay, plus, again, capability, 3D V cache, all of those things are going to pretty much, render for better performance and kind of get you where you need to go, if you understand what I mean. So we got Horizon Forbidden West over here. I'm going to go ahead and continue my game, and I'm running in the opening area here. And my settings, I think, last time I actually set it all up, my settings were maxed out. And you're going to basically be able to go ahead and see what the performance looks like. Let's go ahead and take that into account. So here, the settings are very high. All the settings end at very high. It goes very low. If you notice the difference, you see that? You see the preview that it shows you? It shows you how much of the texture detail you're going to be missing. So very low. Then you go to low, which, you see the filtering and all of that. Level of detail here is low. The cinematic detail is all on performance. They're trying to get you the best performance ever. Medium also improves the quality. If I stayed on medium, which my guess is because the console version has access to checkerboard rendering and dynamic, resolution scaling, which I've turned off actually in this particular instance. Let's go ahead and make sure. So refresh rate is 60. I turned off dynamic resolution scaling, right? So I'm not playing in like the console version, of which I could, or we could use FSR or whatever it is, which I turned off FSR at the beginning of things, but I'm going to turn it off here. Then you also have, let's go back to the graphics settings and go back to the main, and then let's go to high settings, which then shows you the difference. So you see the difference in level of detail between medium and high. And so I think that here is the sweet spot, but you can push to about here because of the GPU. The GPU is a 6750 XT. It's a good 1440 GPU. You can do a really good job. But then as you start spending more and more of your money in terms of VRAM, you're going to see the reason why, high is probably better, because not only are you looking at the texture detail, you're looking at shadows and all of that. But even if we go with the very high, which would be ultra in, other cases, you see that the level of detail is actually beautiful. You realize also that, you're not having any stutters, any problem. Gorilla is insane in their development. Game looks phenomenal at the end of the day, and you're playing beyond the reach of a console. Now, there's open world applications and all of that stuff, but again, for $850 or thereabout, you've already smoked the PS5 Pro proposition. Now, let's go ahead and address a few things, because some people will say, well, you got a deal. You walked into GameStop and you were able to go ahead and find, this particular CPU, and, no one can even find this CPU anymore, blah, blah, blah. And to that, I say that's fair. However, here's the thing. PlayStation was able to go ahead and, haggle and, negotiate cost of its components with its different manufacturers to be able to get the very best deal. So why can't I do that? I mean, am I disallowed from doing that? I'm not. And I'm not even talking about even used items in this case. Everything here, in terms of my, little chart that I put together, is based on brand new components, by the way. I do have my receipts for this particular device. The CPU, I have my receipts for the GPU. The case, we can look up cases because I don't have the receipt for this case anymore. I bought it all the way back in 2017. So again, I've been using this build or this case for a minute to basically house multiple builds. The power supply, around $50 should get you a good 700 watt power supply, which should basically run the combination if you want. I mean, let's go ahead and look at that Thermaltake. There's a little Thermaltake version that they make that gets the job done. The RAM, I put that at 60, but that's because I'm assessing the cost of your cooler. I guess I should go ahead and basically put the cost of a cooler here. So RAM is around, RAM is cheap. It was about $30-ish at the time I was building, or 35. And then the cooler itself, we just looked at the cooler Hyper 212, and that was, $29.99, $30. And it's a good cooler, okay? Just putting all the components and the pieces in front of you. So again, if you say that, we got a deal. In this case, this is all market MSRP. I mean, the GPU, I bought it before the PS5 Pro came out, and I was making these videos. basically begging and telling everybody, I hope you might want to go ahead and, pay attention to what's going on because, when the new consoles come into play, it's going to look like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And some people were, trying to drag me in the comment section and tell me all kinds of nonsense because I said that the PlayStation 5 Pro was a scam. And by the way, we're playing at 1080. We're leveraging 1080 at the best possible settings. We'll do some more testing where we'll leverage 1440 and push this thing to see what it's going to do at 1440. So this is Indiana Jones in the Great Circle. Let's go ahead and get some full screen here. Everything is high. It's what it's given me as a natural, set of settings. Let's see what it does. Upscaling. It comes with upscaling. Resolution scaling, though, you can turn that off, which I usually enjoy keeping that off. Dynamic resolution scaling is off. Performance metrics. Let's go ahead and do this. Ooh, I love this. I did not know that this was on the. It was an Indiana Jones. It shows you all of your stuff. RT is on. Let's get RT off. I need RT to be off. I'm here for the rendering, high contrast mode, graphic settings. Where's my ray tracing? I need to turn my ray tracing off to ensure that I can leverage the best raster performance on an AMD, Zen RDNA 2 device. I can't seem to find the RT settings. I remember messing with them back when I played it on my NVIDIA device. But hey, you know what? One thing that I wanted to look at is the advanced video settings. The vegetation quality is set to ultra by default. Now, I'm of the mind that I want to move that down a little bit. And it basically flickers my, if you notice, it will flicker the frame time and frame rates. But that's also something that I don't think it really does have too much in terms of a resource intensive piece of it, if you understand what I mean. So let's go ahead and we'll fire up a new game because that first piece, this is an indoor area. I mean, this area is not really going to give you what I think is a strong, perspective in terms of what's going on. And then we'll play that initial area that has all of that vegetation and everything that's there. So let's go ahead and do that. Moderate. I don't know. I'm just firing some settings. Let's go ahead and fire the game brand new, just right off the bat. So already high settings. You're seeing the performance. The frame rates are, in my opinion, just insane. And this is it. Native 1080p, blowing past 70 FPS. And this is a 60 hertz monitor. Okay. So what that FPS counter is doing is saying, yeah, we have more frames for you should you be able to render it. And so if I bring my high refresh rate monitor here, which I should, I don't know why I didn't, but I'm just working on 60 FPS to see how we capture everything, in terms of this. So here we are in this huge, thick vegetation area. We are running at 60 FPS, right? We can go back to Giza, or the place that we were just now. I should have saved multiple slots. I should have basically created multiple save slots in that playthrough that I'm already on. I'm already in that playthrough. I'm still at the pyramids. I was enjoying the game before I got to this one boss that kind of annoyed the heck out of me. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to spoil it for some of you, but the game has been out for a while, man. It's now out too everywhere. Early access was on Xbox for months, and then they finally brought the game to PlayStation. But again, $850 or whatever it is you are paying, depending on how you optimize your costs, and you are way beyond what the PlayStation 5 Pro can actually provide. If you haggle and do a little bit of pushing here and there, you now realize that this build that was designed to originally beat the PlayStation 5 can now be transformed for a small fee, right, to decimate the PS5 Pro and still has opportunity as time goes on. This is the thing that they don't tell you about PC gaming is you start somewhere and then you continue to build. So if you want to watch the video where I first put the build together, I've done a build with some metrics on some games like my favorite games, Gotham Knights, and so on and so forth. You can definitely check that video out on the channel. Just look up PS5 Killer. I might link it here in the comment section for you or in the description or whatever it is so that you can go ahead and take a look at it yourself. But I strongly believe that a lot of the conversations out here really need a little bit more in terms of assessment. Now, don't get me wrong. There are places that are going to chew this particular FPS out. Like it's gonna make the FPS kind of sink a little bit. But my buffer is insane. I'm at 13 milliseconds in my frame time. Man, can everybody put a thing like this inside their game? ID Soft, shout out to you. Goodness. So let's go ahead and, possibly take a look at one more title. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at one more title here, quick game. And I think what I want to do is I want to look at, say, if I have access to Gotham Knights on here, I'll take a look at it because I play that game a lot. Like, again, you got to think about the games that you play. And I usually start these videos with like, Gotham Knights or whatever it is. But this is an Unreal Engine 4 game that was put out here and it never landed on its best foot, if you get what I mean. It was kind of weird to see Gotham Knights actually, go that route when it came down to it. Hold on. There we go. It was kind of interesting to see Gotham Knights on coming out on that, on that kind of foot. And it was just at the end of the day kind of strange, if you get what I mean. But then the developers did their job. They worked really hard and they've been able to go ahead and patch, the game in a way that, it runs phenomenally if you think about it. And so what I'm doing here is I'm running these 1080 metrics so that you can already see exactly where this game is pretty much sitting, in terms of where it is right now. There's no question that if you are looking for building a PC and thinking about the components, and if you're going to have performance like, a console, regardless of the market, there are so many opportunities, and we haven't even gone to the used market. If we go to the used market, we're going to dial this cost down so hard and gain more in terms of performance. You won't recognize a console anymore. And it's this multi-skewed, I would say village that PC has that puts the PC in a very interesting spot. When you think about it, we have so many components. AMD will release in every generation and sub-generation. They'll release multiple, SKUs to go ahead and leverage all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? They want to get different customer, users and stuff. And this is not even this computer at its, this is not this PC at its, how do you call it? It's not the PC at its best or optimal use. Right now, it's just fully locked at 60 FPS. But again, it doesn't seem like it's interested in going anywhere in terms of the frame rate. Let's see what's going on here. Let's go. Under the bridge fighting. You're going to fight so much here, man. These Court of Owls don't listen. Dodge. Look at your frame time. 16 milliseconds. Let's see. Ooh. Dodge. Yeah. And there we go. So 1080, 60. Now let's do 1440. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Peace out.